God bless you. Welcome to the dwelling place. This is Evangelist Doris J. Roberson, and I greet you in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I want to again welcome those that are joining from YouTube and those that are joining from Facebook. Welcome. I want to encourage you before we have a word of prayer to stop and tag someone and encourage someone to join tonight. Word of prayer before we begin our program on tonight. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you once again for allowing us to come to share on this platform. We thank you, Lord, for our guest on tonight and our co-host on tonight. We just ask your blessings, and we ask, oh God, that you would just use our presenters and our guests to share what you would have them to share and what's on their heart, and that others will be inspired by their story and by their testimony, even by their words of wisdom. We just pray your blessing, and we ask, oh God, that you be glorified. These and other blessings we ask in your dear Son, Jesus' name. Thank God. Amen. Well, again, I want to remind you we're in a series for the month of March, the Women's History Month. And throughout this month, we have been blessed to have some amazing speakers and guests. And I want to encourage you tonight to invite someone to join on tonight. If you're joining for the first time from YouTube or from Facebook, I'm Evangelist Doris Roberson, and we thank God for our guests on tonight. On last Sunday, we had an amazing presentation from our first guest, which was Kelly Etchison Ellsworth, and we thank God for her amazing wisdom that she shared on last Sunday. And I know that this is going to be just as good and even better as we continue throughout this month. We thank God for these women. We celebrate, and you may be asking, why do we take the time to pause and celebrate women? Women really are the backbone of 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 businesses and families and homes, and they wear so many hats. And God has blessed women to be creative and intuitive and just with so much talent and skill. And because of that, we pause and celebrate the accomplishment of great women. And so tonight we have with us, and our theme tonight is the newer Trailblazers, building and behind the success. We want you to be motivated and inspired by their stories and their accomplishments. And as you're joining, I'm asking you to please tag someone and invite them to come along, because I can reassure you, you are going to have some takeaways. Maybe you have a dream, maybe you have something that God has put in your heart, and you just need to know, what steps do I need to take? Well, by the end of this presentation, I'm sure you will be inspired and will have some takeaways. I want to take this time to say thanks to Karen Sturdivant, who's going to right now introduce our two guests, and they are going to be sharing, and we are going to share the platform as we interview. But Karen, please welcome and thank you for taking this opportunity to share with me, to introduce our guests and to recognize them and to celebrate their accomplishment. God bless you.
Thank you. Well, in media as a reporter and anchor for Power 96.5, 20 WILS, and a producer and assignment editor, guest affiliate, WLNS 6 News in Lansing, Michigan, rooted in her commitment to grow local communities. Cameo King is a leader in chats, deep laughter, and sweet potato pie. She's a proud out of Detroit, and above all else, is a staunch advocate for girls and up authentically and whole at home, on the job, and does this work as the founder and the executive director of and Guts, Triple G. At the core of everything she does for women and girls, she keeps a hip roll in her front pocket, no nonsense attitude. She absolutely loves being Black, being a daughter of Howard University. Her favorite Black girl saying is, live from her bookstore in Lansing, Michigan, Lawrence is a multi-passionate author, poet, and creative entrepreneur. Lansing, Nichelle transparently shares her journey from tragedy to triumph of performance poetry. To further this work, she is the author of Scar, Beauty in My Pain, and she, a sister girl's guide to overcoming and pursuing a limitless future. As a creative consultant and writer, committed to empowering women in life and business while holding space for women, motherhood, and ministry. She's a loving wife to her husband, Jonathan. They have 4 daughters. As a family, they serve in ministry at their local church, David. Please, listening audience, help me celebrate young, gifted, and Black entrepreneurial women. Take it away.
Well, we'll start with our first question. My
All right.
question,
I have the first question. Do I?
yes, you said take it away, so I wasn't sure.
All right. What was the driving force for you to stake your claim as an entrepreneur, business owner, and founder of a nonprofit organization?
Okay, my mic is off mute now. So I'll take that question. And so honestly, uh, I think it was God, right? I know some people say that very cavalierly, but it was because I didn't envision myself leading a nonprofit movement or leading a nonprofit, especially that was focused on girls. I remember my first experience. I was a part of a another nonprofit doing work teaching youth about media. And it was One Love Global and Angela Austin. She said, "You're great at this. I would love to have you back." And so I continued to do that work, and it filled my soul in a way that I didn't know that I needed it. And she said, I was doing youth programming work then. And she told me, she's like, "I want you to do something focused on girls." And I honestly, I was like, "I don't want to do nothing focused on girls." Like that was legit my response. Like obviously I didn't say that to her, but that was my response. And so I said, "Okay, I'll think it through." And then she kind of came back again a couple weeks later and asked me had I worked on it. And I hadn't, because I wasn't excited about it. And so I started to think about ways I could create programming, specifically a conference for teen girls. And she came to me maybe a week later and she said, "I have to tell you something, Cameo." And I said, "Okay, don't let me forget. Don't let me forget." I said, "Okay." Walking out the door, and I really didn't want to hear it. So I just kind of kept walking. And she grabbed me. She says, "Cameo, you forgot to remind me." And she said, "God told me to tell you that this thing that you're creating is for you. It's not for me." And in my heart, I said, "God ain't tell me that." Um, but here we are 12 years later, and it is a part of what I do. And I understand why it is a part of what I do. When I think about all of the different aspects of my life, when I think about why I create these spaces, when I think about what I want those spaces to represent, it only makes sense. And so that was one of the many driving forces behind why I create Great Glam and Guts and why I have the conversations I do on the Good Girl podcast.
Wow.
So I was never really 100% sure what I wanted to be when I grew up. One of the things that I did think of, though, was being an entrepreneur. I was not sure exactly what field though that would be in or what it would look like. In high school, I took cosmetology, and for a long time, I thought that I was going to own a salon. By the time I graduated from high school, I had settled on becoming a teacher. Um, and when I decided that wasn't really what I wanted to do, I moved on and became a office administrator at a Big Ten university. And so after doing that, right, I've lived a lot of lives. So after doing that, I became a stay-at-home mom. And part-time, though, I've always had a service-based business for a very long time. It's something that I grew up seeing my parents do. They worked full-time for someone, and then part-time they would have a side business. One that was very influential in my life was a desktop publishing company that my parents owned. And growing up, seeing them doing that and working in the business with them, that helped give me a background in branding and design. So before the bookstore, in my free time, if you will, I built websites, help people publish books, and do things like that. So I always knew that being an entrepreneur in some fashion um, would be a part of my future. When it came to becoming a bookseller and opening the bookstore, though, I absolutely saw a need in our community. I actually visited another local bookstore. My husband and I went out on a date, and I went to the section that was labeled Women of Color, and I noticed that it was lacking. I wasn't excited about it. I ended up not buying anything, and I really did not feel seen or celebrated in that space. And so I left feeling disappointed, but also wanting to figure out what I could do to make a difference in our community and make sure that no other woman walked into a bookstore and felt that unseen. And so that really sparked the idea for this space that I've created, and that's what was really the jump start of me saying I'm going to go ahead and do this entrepreneurship thing full time.
Well, ladies, I'm just excited about how both of you got started. Think about in terms of when you, now that you have, well, for you, Cameo, you've been in existence almost 12 years. So since you started, help us to understand the mission in your business model or organization model. Uh, and can you talk about that, both of you? Has that changed from the time you started? You have a mission, and let us understand what that mission is. And has it changed from thinking back 12 years ago to currently? And same for you as well, Nichelle.
So I took part in this training a while back. It was about being a good board member, and it talked about the evolution of organizations, specifically nonprofits. And one thing that stuck with me was that while your product per se can change, whatever you deliver, whatever you give to your community, the core values of the organization stays the same. And so I think that's something that I lived on. And because my organizations are so very connected to my heart, my intent has always been the same. How it is delivered may have changed. And so when I think about, what I want any girl or any woman to feel when they interact with anything that I do, first, I want them to feel safe, right? I want them to feel safe in being themselves at any point in their life, right? We have messy parts of our lives. We have parts of our lives where we are very on point and very targeted, and this is what I'm called to do. We have points in our lives where we have the slightest idea who we are, because of some things that have transpired, whether it's grief, whether it is just coming into a different version of yourself. So at whatever point you are in your life, a consistent thread in the Grit, Glam, and Guts programming, a consistent thread in the conversations on the Good Girl podcast has been creating a space where you feel safe. That's a part of it. I think another part of it too has also ensuring that you have the tools, practical tools, to get you to a place of freedom. I'm sure we have all been there at some point in our life where we realize something isn't as beneficial for us. Some identity, some way of being that society has told us to exist as women or as Black women. We have taken that on. And so there's a process to take it off. And so also giving women and girls the tools as they are unbecoming, as well as relearning themselves and their purpose. And so you ask, has the mission changed? No, but maybe how we deliver it has changed and has evolved, ensuring that we are meeting the needs of people at different points and at different spaces.
Before you quit, can you talk a little bit about what services are provided in your programs?
Sure. So I think I'm gonna start with the easy one. So the Good Girl podcast, that's simple. You can go in and you can listen, right? You can go in and you can listen to the Good Girl podcast at any point at any time. And that gives you a space of freedom when you're hearing other people's stories. And I think there's also an aspect of healing as folks that are sharing have been healed, or as they are healing themselves, and having these very raw and transparent conversations that oftentimes we really don't have in public spaces, or we don't have in our communities, or we don't have maybe in our churches. And so the Grit, Glam, and Guts, which is a little bit more tangible, we have after school programming for our girls. So we have chapters. We have a chapter at Lansing chapter. We have a Waverly chapter. We'll be bringing on a chapter in East Lansing as well. And so these are, again, spaces for girls, Black girls. They're centering the experiences of Black girls. This doesn't mean that non-Black girls have not been are not a part of it. It centers the experiences of Black girls where they can feel safe, where their voice is heard, where their voice is affirmed. And they're also tasked to complete a project. Each chapter is that aligns with the principles of Grit, Glam, and Guts, which is courage, leadership, authenticity, solidarity, and self-determination.
Wow.
Those 5 principles. And only reason I can remember them is because they spell class. But so they create a project every semester and sometimes a year long that aligns with those principles. So they are put in a position of leadership and put in a position of ensuring that they know they have the power to effectuate change in their community and even in themselves, so they can be the solution to their own problems, but with the support of the community, right? Because they didn't create these problems, or they didn't create these issues in these systems. And so those are some of the services. We also have a week-long camp at MSU. We do Black Girl Day of Play. That's a space where we want women to understand what it means to rest and to exist in joy. You mentioned it, Evangelist, that we wear many hats. A lot of them are keepers of the community, upholding and serving in our homes, in our churches, being a leader on the job. At what point in time do we really take a step back? And while that may definitely be a source of joy, because you get excited because you get to serve in church at times. You get excited because you are creating this environment where your family can thrive. But there are times when women just really need to focus on themselves and understand that they deserve joy as an individual. So that's what Black Girl Day of Play is about too. So those are some of the services that Grit, Glam, and Guts provides, as well as the Good Girl podcast.
Wow, that's comprehensive. Thank you. Michelle, same question.
Oh, absolutely. So our mission in starting Socialite Society was simply to celebrate Black women and celebrate Black literature. And that's what we continue to do. So inside of the store, we curate classic, contemporary, and children's titles, predominantly written by Black women, simply because oftentimes we are underrepresented in traditional bookshops. So one change when it comes to our mission, though, we've changed our language a little bit. So when we first started, I would say that we curated titles predominantly written by women of color. And as we really got into the work and started doing this, I realized that I wanted to focus specifically on Black women and the experience of Black women. And so that is how we've changed in our mission, I guess. But for the most part, it's really doing the same thing. Bringing women into this space where they can feel seen, where they can feel celebrated. I like to say that it's a space that you can come in and you can be yourself. It's one of the times where you don't have to lead with your accomplishments or your degrees or, what you've created or what it is that you think makes you worthy. We want to celebrate you just because of who you are. And so when women come in, I hear all the time, like, oh, I'm so comfortable in here. Oh, it feels like home. It's not often that you go into a space where you see us as the majority. And I feel like that brings a certain level of comfort. It brings that safety that Cameo was talking about. And yeah, so that's what we're here to do in the store. We do a lot of different things, from story time for children. That's an event that we host once a month. Each month, I invite a influential, inspirational Black woman from our community to read to the children. I think it's very important for young kids, specifically young Black kids, to see people of influence that look like them, for them to understand that someone that looks like them can absolutely be the standard. So in January, we were able to have State Senator Sarah Anthony. February, we had Judge Kristen Simmons. In March, we had Cameo
All right.
come into the store. Next month, we have a Black woman news anchor who's coming in, like a Black girl on TV. That's important, right? Girls need to see that and know that that's something that they can aspire to. So I'm so proud of our story time, and definitely love doing that for the community. We host a monthly book club where we switch back and forth between reading classic and contemporary titles. And so we're picking up those Toni Morrison books and those Octavia Butler books, books that we don't necessarily get to read about in school, but they're definitely important to our history. And we bring women together to discuss that. We also spend a lot of time out in the community at different events and popping up for different community organizations. And then also, of course, we're very proud of the work that we're able to do with local school districts. So whether that's helping to revamp their libraries or provide diverse books for elementary classrooms, or recently we started doing book fairs in elementary schools. We were able to do that for Black History Month. And even this week, we're looking forward to having a local school come out to the Lansing Mall as a field trip. Each child is going to come in, they're going to get a book that features a Black character, and then they're going to be able to do some other fun things inside of the mall. Very excited about the impact that we've been able to make in the community in the short amount of time that we've been in existence. And that is, again, pretty much what we do, really focusing on celebrating Black women, but also getting literature that is representative of the community and making it accessible to folks.
I gotta salute you. That's a lot. And that's amazing for what you've been able to accomplish. And I know that in November, we had book talk. And so those women were all African American. understand. So you're looking for Black authors.
Mhm.
I certainly will give you their contact information. If, hey, that's, so there could be a maybe space for, you know, faith-based information as well, or real life stories. Because, well, I'm just sharing that. So some of them are probably listening, and hopefully we'll be in contact with you. All right.
And so I'm
Enough of
sorry,
that. And
one more thing.
sure.
Since you mentioned that, we absolutely do look forward to working with local and independent authors. We have a section that is dedicated just for that. And we love to have local authors actually come into the space, whether that's for your book signing, if you want to do a reading, to explain more about what your book is about. We're here for that because we're here for the community. So I just wanted to put it out there that that's one of our loves. Not only do we celebrate national authors, but we're here for local independents as well.
Well, obviously, there's a couple individuals, I won't call their names, but they need to, they've launched their books, and maybe they need to, I'll have to pass that on to them. So congratulations on that. Karen, I know you're waiting, so please feel free to go with the next question.
The next question, we're going to start with Michelle for in pace. And the question is, what particular challenges and as a woman of color have you faced? Please include lessons and how did you overcome the obstacles? Michelle.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is shortly after launching Socialite Society, I came to the realization that not everyone was as excited as I am about a space that celebrates Black women. We have been very fortunate, very blessed that we've received a lot of press coverage, local and nationally. And so there was one time where we were featured in an article, and you know how they say, don't read the comments? Yeah, I made the mistake of reading the comments. And things were said that ranged from Black people don't read anyway, so they're not gonna last 6 months.
Wow.
Things like maybe some of those peaceful protesters will burn the place down.
Gee.
Yeah, and so, I'm not naive to think that, these things don't go on in our world, right? I know that it happens, and I know that it's real, but to see those comments under my article, right? And all I want to do is celebrate women, and y'all are mad at me, and I don't understand, I don't understand why. And so I feel like, I don't know, that was a time where I could have said, this is too scary, or, this could be dangerous for me or my family, or, I feel like if ever I was gonna back out, that could have been the time, knowing that not everyone wants the space. But definitely for me, that was a lesson that we not reading the comments anymore. I don't care if they're good or bad. I'm just gonna, keep a blind eye to that. But two, we can't worry about what other people have to say. I 100% believe that God gave me this vision, right? And so in that, I have to have the faith that he is gonna see me through it, and to make sure that what it is that he gave me, that he placed on the inside of me, is going to come to pass. So it's been interesting in this business, especially in saying that, directly saying, we celebrate Black women. So leading, if you will, with Blackness, leading, if you will, with being a woman. And in the same way that we have a lot of support, we also get a lot of questions. So keeping the vision in mind, keeping what we're here for in mind, and going forth with that, and not allowing the thoughts or the negative comments of others sway what it is that I know that I'm supposed to do. So really, that's been my biggest takeaway so far, and my biggest lesson in knowing that, as a Black woman, it's not always going to be easy when you cast your vision out there, but being willing to take on that criticism and still go forward with what it is that you've been called to.
Very good.
Danielle?
Yeah, so Nichelle, like I know you know this, but I just want to reiterate it, that any room you go into, that you have a room full of women that are also rooting for you. We may not physically be in that room with you. And I know you said both sides, but I just want to reiterate it because I think sometimes we need to hear that in these spaces, that whether we see you on TV, whether we see an article, whether we find out that the Socialite Society is Oprah's favorite book store. I keep saying that, but we're rooting for you. And so when I think about challenges that I faced in terms of building a business, I think something practical, I think for a lot of us is capacity, right? And when I say capacity, a lot of us are casting a vision and just going for it. And we're putting our resources, we're putting our time, we're putting our energy into it. And so while the need for the services that we offer, the need for more Grit Glam and Guts chapters, the need for more programming or for more structure or more instructors happens, my capacity as an individual is limited, right? There's only one of Cameo, right? And so increased capacity. So that's something like very practical, something very hands-on. And what does increased capacity look like? More people on board for the vision. But when you bring more people on board, you got to have more money so you can pay people. So, and so it goes hand in hand, because at the same time, you don't want to expand too quickly, right? Especially for me, when you're dealing with the lives of children, especially for me, when I am so very intentional on what I share and what I say in this social media space. So I'm intentional on what I share on my podcast, right? And the quality of it. You have to be intentional on who you bring into the vision. And I've been blessed with people who have allowed me to expand my capacity, but that definitely has been one of the challenges in terms of time, in terms of ensuring I get enough rest, all these components. But something else that I think is probably more important than that, it may counter that a little bit, but your calling, your dream will require every part of you. And when I say that, I think I didn't know this until I was planning Black Girl Day of Play, but I think we all have different facets of ourselves, right? Some that we like to keep under wraps, some that and I say that because if I'm being transparent, like I had to get with some people as I was planning Black Girl Day of Play, because there wasn't a level of seriousness, right? And when I say it requires every part of Cameo, that part of Cameo that I somewhat buried, or that I didn't think was acceptable, right? Women are very much told all the time to be nice, to be happy, to be sweet, if that is a part of who you are. But there's the other part that is necessary to get things done, and where people have to take you seriously. And so every single part of me, I believe, is required to see this vision come to pass. And at every level, I think another part of you is required, and another level of you, a greater level of you, whether it's greater discipline, greater commitment, better time management, whatever it is. And I think sometimes we piecemeal our dreams, or think we can only give it this much of ourselves, when it needs the goofy side, the serious side, the angry side, the Detroit side, it needs every part of you to see that thing come to pass.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm just so amazed at both of you, what you've accomplished. And I want to make sure that we know that we can get through many of the questions that I think some of our viewers also want to hear about. So, so just let's keep that in mind as well. I'm really excited to hear, how did you arrive at the name of your business, your organization, the location? That's always interesting to find out. How did you come about? How did Socialite come about, and GGG and Good Girls podcast? Can you let us know, and anything you want to share in terms of the location and the target population? What's behind that?
Sure. So, Socialite Society, I actually, that night that my husband and I went out on that date, and I made him talk to me about this space that I was going to create to celebrate Black women. I'm sure that's not what he had in mind when he said he was going to take me out. The name Socialite Society came to me through our conversation. And so I was thinking, the first part of the word so thinking about people in general, and then light, how can we be the light in someone else's life? I thought about Matthew 5:16, which is, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. And really just thinking about, how can we be the light for someone else? So social light, and then society. When before I launched Socialite Society, this was actually something that I thought I was going to do later in life, when my daughters were a little bit older and I was like ready for retirement. I figured then I would open a bookstore. And then the city of Lansing came up with a contest called Lansing Built to Last. And I had a couple of friends who encouraged me to put my idea out there. And so when I went to fill out the paperwork for that, I tried to come up with a different name for this bookstore. I was like, it has to be something else, because I just, don't know if I'm really feeling it. Nope, Socialite Society stuck. That's what it was. That was the idea I put in my notebook in 2017, and then when we launched in 2021, I legit could not come up with anything else. I tried to fight it, but it's Socialite Society. As far as our location, we started out actually in downtown Lansing, sharing space with another business. And at that time, I wasn't sure, one, if the community really even wanted a bookstore with this niche. And then two, I wasn't sure if I was ready for a space of my own. And so another business owner offered some space to me, and I thought I was going to be there for about a year and then maybe venture out on my own. I was there for 2 weeks, and I found out that other business was going to be closing at the end of the year. And so I had to make a quick decision and figure out if I was going to pack up and go home or move on to do something else. And by that time, the community had been so invested in what we were doing that I knew it was not time to go home. And I started looking for a space, and I looked around at spaces, reached out to Delta Township, and they recommended the Lansing Mall. And I was able to come here and absolutely fell in love with the space that we're in now. So it is not what I originally imagined when I thought that I was going to build out Socialite Society, but it's absolutely where we're supposed to be at this time. So that's
good.
the backstory.
Yes, very good, very good. And how about you, Cameo?
I can't help, but it's such a beautiful location. Nichelle, it's so gorgeous. I've been in there several times. It's so perfect.
And she's there. I want our audience to know she's there now. So
Yeah,
Go right
yeah, you
ahead.
do
I'm
feel at
sorry for
home.
interrupting.
No, no, you're fine. You do feel at home there. Always excited to be in a platform with Nichelle. But in terms of, did I forget the question? In terms of location for
And how you
Great
came up
Glam and
with the
Guts.
name, your business
Oh, the
name.
name. Oh, so that's okay. Yeah. So Grit, Glam, and Guts. I know for a lot of people that's a tongue twister. And so I'm going to say it a couple times. Grit, that's singular. We're not talking about grits that we're eating. Grit, like muscle grit. Glam, like sometimes you think about glam, getting cute, getting glammed up. And then guts, like a punch in the guts. And so I wanted a name that encompassed what I felt like was aspects of womanhood and of girlhood. And so when you think about grit, it takes strength to be who you are. It takes strength to walk in your authenticity, especially as a teen. Like teen years can be challenging, you know, your hormones going everywhere. You are trying to figure out who you are. You have people in your ear, and now you have social media telling you how you need to exist. And so that's a part of the grit. The glam, it's not what you think, right? It's really not the face glam, right? It is the compassion that makes us beautiful from our experiences. And so I'm big on compassion, especially in our communities. When we are connected to other women and other girls, how can we extend that compassion? How can we very much create a sisterhood? And the guts is the guts to keep going, because I don't know about you guys, but when you have tried and you've pushed and you pushed at something and it doesn't happen in your timing, and it doesn't happen the way you desire it to happen, that hurts. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, right? And so it's about the guts to keep going and to keep pushing. And so that's what Grit, Glam, and Guts was for me. And the Good Girl podcast, that's a little bit more personal, because there's this idea, and God convicted me early on, of what you think is good. You know, there's a verse, nothing, only thing good is what comes from the Father. And I think a lot of us rest in this place of I'm good, a good human being, I have good character, things like that. And we are, because of the blood of Jesus, and because things that we've learned. But I think we've used that to believe we are due something from God. We've used that as almost a springboard to negotiate blessings from God. And I wanted to push back on that, because God had told me, like, you think you good? Let me show you your little dirty soul, right? um, and show me how much help I needed, and show me how dependent I was on God, and also just showing me God's different character. And it also pushes back on, again, what society has told us is good. Is it really good for us? Um, and so I really wanted to have conversations on the Good Girl podcast about deconstructing this idea of goodness, and realizing that it's not as beneficial as we think it is. It's more so, what is your relationship like with God? Are you walking in your purpose? Are you being authentic to who God called you to be?
Okay. In terms of location,
Oh, location. So my studio is right here. And so we record. So we
so
record for the
go ahead.
so we record for the Good Girl podcast. Obviously, you know, here I'm at
Yes,
home, and sometimes I may go to specific places. For Grit, Glam, and Guts,
yes.
that really depends. So for the Lansing chapter, because it's students and because it's young people over 18, like they have their own location, so they may
Okay.
meet somewhere specifically. If it is at for Waverly, we're connected to the Waverly School District, so we meet there during school hours. Same thing with East Lansing. And so we have those set locations that are around the students, at least the chapters do. And then we're very much project based. And when I say project based, so if we're having a project, for example, like the week-long camp at Michigan State University, obviously kids are at MSU, and they're staying in the dorms, and they are going on field trips, and they are taking courses from PhD level individuals, Black women. And so that's when you ask about location, that's pretty much how we function.
I want to ask this question because I think it's appropriate and for our audience to understand. If somebody's interested in having a chapter, let's say a Wayne County says, you know what, we need something like this in the Wayne County. You are a product of Wayne County. And so, or someone out of state that's listening or hear the broadcast or the replay. And they say, gosh, can we duplicate that? Can you address that real quickly? And then we're going to probably end with 2 more questions. But if you can address that real quickly.
Okay, I just want to make a note. I heard Joe real quickly. So let me be quick. Let me be quick with it.
I don't want us to run out of time.
Easy, like just literally send me an email, right, to that info@gritglamandguts.com. We do have the capacity to expand to other cities. We're considering going out of state, but again, we do this slowly. So just email me. We have information on our website as well, gritglamandguts.com or gritglamandguts.org, and it kind of spells out what we do, and we continue a sample curriculum.
Wow, that's great. That is so great. Karen, back over to you.
My last question for the evening. How has your skill set, education, training, and with your personality and character impacted your work? How? Camille?
Oh, okay. There we go. Okay. I was like, I didn't know who you wanted to go first. So my skill set, education, training, and experiences. So I think all of that, kind of to the earlier question, I think all of that is a part of what makes me best to do what I'm called to do. I couldn't do any of this without my background in journalism. I couldn't do any of this without having some experience in community organizing. I don't think if I wasn't a product of Howard University, my passion and my interaction would not be the same when it comes to understanding, learning, and experiencing Black excellence at its height. Clearly, I love my university, right? I think all that matters. You're bringing your full self to the table. And what advice would I give an aspiring entrepreneur? What I said earlier, you have to bring your full self to this. Don't piecemeal it. Bring your full self to this. God and therapy.
Wow.
Michelle?
Yes to God and therapy, absolutely. I say all the time that every woman that I've ever been has led to the opening and the operation of Socialite Society, from working retail a long time ago, from being an office manager at Michigan State University, from growing up in bookstores, whether that was visiting bookstores nonstop with my dad or helping my mom run church bookstores. This has been my life. And even when it comes to social media and marketing, using my skills in graphic design and visual branding, all of it adds up, which causes me to remember all the time that there has been no time wasted. Sometimes we wonder why it may take so long for a dream to come to pass, or take so long for us to even know really what it is that we want to do in life. And but no time has been wasted, because all of those things, even though at the time they may have seemed small and minimal, and why am I doing this, they've all added up, and I'm definitely grateful for those experiences. Some advice that I would give to an entrepreneur would be to just go for it. A lot of times we wonder about the resources, so we may doubt ourselves because our vision is much bigger than what is tangible to us in the moment. But I'm living proof that if you take one step, God will reveal the next thing. But you have to be diligent in taking that first step and taking the next one. So don't be afraid of the small in order to get to where you're trying to go.
Awesome. Well, my question is, as we kind of start wrapping up, and this whole month has been on being trailblazers. And I feel like both of you are really on the move and have done some amazing work and definitely are making space for others and bringing others along. What do you envision 5 to 10 years out? What is the things that are in your heart that you want to maybe leave as a legacy that you're incorporating in your vision, that your long term? So give us the big dream. Either one of you.
It's interesting that you asked that because I have two, and I'm gonna keep it short. I have two competing thoughts.
No,
right?
go right ahead.
One, I don't know if I like to put a timeline on it, because the timeline has,
Yes.
in a sense, gotten me in trouble, right? I expect this to happen here, then, and now. And I'm definitely in a space of surrendering in terms of what I hope that looks like. And so when I talk about being in a space of duality, right? Like, yes, I hope this happens in 5 or 10 years, or yes, this is a big dream. But when it doesn't happen in that time or in that way, you feel a certain type of way. But I do not want that to restrict me at the same time from dreaming, from being connected to my desires. And so a couple of things that I do hope to happen over the next couple of years. One, I hope to have my PhD. So I plan to go and do and study this work when it comes to how women exist and how they exist in goodness and how that impacts them self-actualizing. I also hope that Great Glam and Guts has expanded not just across the state, but also across the nation. And so we become one of the leading spaces for girls and Black girls to exist and to build and to create and to empower, and even having a national conference where Black girls are creating and they are existing, and we're bringing in, headliners that are also at that age group. And so it's just this big congregation of girls that are coming together across the nation. So those are two. And then three, that the Good Girl podcast becomes this movement of conversation of what it looks like to be a free Black woman and also to be considered good. And so those are my I'll call them big, hairy goals. And that we're really making impact and influence, where we're having, the Michelle Obamas, the Beyoncés, the Nichelles of the world to come on our podcast and have these conversations about their existence of womanhood, and that we're not painting this picture of goodness that isn't accurate.
Wow. Dynamite. Michelle.
Yes, I love that. So over the next few years, I would love to see Socialite Society expand. One thought that comes to mind is multiple locations. And so a lot of people always ask, are you looking for another space because you're inside of a mall? I love the fact that this is like a destination space. People come to the mall just to experience Socialite Society. And so I would love to allow other cities to experience that. I also have said from the beginning that Socialite Society is more than just books. We were really looking at different ways that we can celebrate Black women beyond the bookstore. So I have some big ideas about what that could be. But in this moment, I'll just say that you can continue to look for us in spaces that cause celebration, but that will be outside of the bookstore. So that could be a podcast, that could be conferences, just different ways where we can connect Black women, especially those that inspire us into different ways. And so even in saying this, I feel like, Cameo, we got some more collaborating that we need to do.
I said the same thing. I said the same thing. I said the same thing.
Absolutely. So I'll be working with Cameo for something.
Well, if you will accept just a thought for, I don't know, sip and chat in social societies. I'm thinking, you know, if we're relaxing, I definitely want to have my tea or my coffee. So I hope there's space for that to sit and read or to chat. So I'm excited about what your space can be and what's happening with Grit, Glam, and Guts. And so we're working at it, Cameo. We're working on it. It's a tongue twister, but it is so powerful what God is doing. I like what you said. As I sum up, and as Karen have last words as well, I want you guys to think about, maybe there was something we didn't ask that you want to share with our audience. But as I was really thinking about something Cameo said, when you have to put your whole heart, people will not carry out the way you envision. And so I really thought that was a nugget, because you have this vision and it has to be communicated that way and be delivered that way and be embraced that way. Otherwise, it doesn't materialize the way, you know, if their heart is not in it, it is definitely not going to be duplicated. But you know, with Disney, it is standard wherever you go. So I understand what you were saying, and I just thought, oh, that is a powerful piece, and just, you know, keep it up. And I celebrate you women. You will receive from the dwelling place recognition in the form of, and I've said this, you know, it's a small token of my appreciation with your picture framed certificate. And if there is space in your store, in your office, just something to remember this particular time, this particular month, and this particular year, that we celebrate you. This is what this ministry is about: bringing people to the platform, empowering people, stirring people, and congratulating, and as well as spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ, and using this to say, just as Deborah said, has not the Lord spoken? And he's obviously spoken to both of you, and he's going to continue to speak to you to carry out the business that he would have you to do. And I celebrate you on tonight. And Karen, please have words, and we're going to let our guests wrap up with a lasting word that they want to say to our audience on tonight.
I don't really have any to say. Congratulations for stepping out in the spirit of for such a time as this. There's never been a time more in our history, in my life, our strength and stand strong and to continue to lead. And like I said in my comments, I would love to see the bookstore in DC. Would love to see Triple G on an HB for a week instead of Michigan State's fine school. No shade, but to bring it home, I just think it would just be phenomenal. Just going to declare and decree success and expansion, and in spirit for what you have going here in Lansing and beyond.
Michelle, would you like to go first, and any lasting words you want to say to our audience?
Well, lastly, just thank you so much for this opportunity. This has definitely been a pleasure to be in conversation with you all. And just a reminder that Socialite Society, we are located inside of the Lansing Mall. We also have an online presence at www.socialitesociety.com. And we are very active on social media at Socialite Society. Beyond that, I just wanted to reiterate what I spoke to entrepreneurs earlier, and that's just, if you have a dream or you have a vision, something on the inside of you, don't be afraid to go after it. Don't look at what your circumstances might be right now. Take that first step and trust that God will make the provision for what it is that He's placed on the inside of you.
Very good. So important.
I echo the sentiments of Nichelle. I thank you for this platform. I thank you. It always, and I say this consistently, but it always feels great and it feels affirming. I don't care how far we get into our journey, but it feels affirming when your community celebrates you, right? The people who've seen you and watch you grow, when they celebrate you. So I thank you for that. As always, as well, you can catch the Good Girl Podcast. You can head to our website, thegoodgirlpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it's Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, wherever we are available. It's every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And for Grit, Glam, and Guts, the way that everyone can participate is Black Girl Day of Play, which is coming June 24th at the state capitol.
Wow.
And you can always, yes, excited about that. This will be our second time doing it. And so everyone can participate. I say ages 2 to 92. We want grandmas and newborns out there double dutching. So that's what I expect. That's what I expect on the state capitol line. And the last thing I'll say too, when I talk about bringing your full self to your calling, oftentimes we allow fear to grip us, and we believe that our full selves or a part of ourselves will not be accepted. No, your calling needs that part of yourself too. It needs the twang in your voice. It needs that little attitude that you may have, and not necessarily saying it's negative.
Mm-hmm.
It needs the questions you have. It needs your faith. It needs all of you. So do not allow fear to restrict you in certain places when it is your calling to do something.
Wow. Well stated, both of you. Well stated. And genuinely, you can hear it from me. I celebrate you ladies. You guys make my heart rejoice because of what you've accomplished, what you're doing, and how you're making a difference. You're making a difference in the lives of children, your bookstores, authors, and just continue to be used of God and putting your talents to work. I want to just close with the word of prayer and just asking God's blessing, continuous blessing. I've seen you grow, and I'm just thankful on this week. You know, I've seen this young lady, Dr. Kalanya Calhoun, who's going to be with us on Thursday, being celebrated for the Dr. Ida Gray Award. When I saw that, I just knew that it was the Lord that put it in front of me. And yes, she talked on our show last year because we were using faith-based medical doctors and people in the medical field. But when that came up, I read the story, and I'm not going to tell the story, but Dr. Ida Gray, the first African American, and her story is unique. And there were some similarities. And I said, for her to receive and to attend University of Michigan back in 18 something, and the story is amazing. And for Dr. Calhoun to receive that, I said, I need to celebrate. And it's a part of what God would have us to do. We got to tear down the competition. It is not about that. It's to celebrate each other because of our talent. It builds people up and it inspires people to even go further in their profession and in the things of God. So with that said, dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this broadcast on tonight. We thank you for these amazing women and what you're doing through them. We ask your blessings upon their vision, upon their business, their organization, upon their dreams, God. Just as you've given Joseph dreams, and God, you brought it to fruition. And Father, you've put it in their heart. And we thank you for the dream, the vision, the talents, the time, the energy. Oh God, the even in the midnight hours, the light is burning, God, and they're having conversations about resources and making connections. I pray, God, that you would give them divine connections. God, you will work out the details, things that they're concerned about, God, as they put it before you. God, connect them. God, give them favor with God and man. And we'll celebrate you, Lord. We'll give all the praise, the glory, and honor unto you. To you belong the glory and praise. We ask all these and other blessings. In Jesus' name we do pray. We thank you for watching on tonight. We ask that you will continue to pray for the dwelling place. Pray for Evangelist Doris Roberson. Thank God for Karen Sturdivant tonight, helping me and assisting me. My voice is almost gone, but I appreciate each one of our guests that we've had. It's been amazing. When I looked at the reviews from Thursday, I'm not worried about how many, but just I know that people will be blessed, and for the years and the days ahead, someone will Google and say, I need to hear that story. And you're going to be a blessing to someone else. And that's what matters. And as long as someone received a takeaway, and even tonight, you inspired me. So, with that, thank you for being here. And I will individually reach out to you to get your address. You will receive your frame certificate with your picture and information by the end of the month. And so, with that said, I look forward to coming into your space when I'm in the area. Definitely hope that I can maybe eventually have my and chat. I'm so thank you both, all three of you, for joining us on tonight. God bless you at this time. We're going to end, and you can stay with us for a minute.